I had stopped it, so I just was about to. Oops. We can click that part. Good morning, good morning. My name is Jody Treach. I am the Grants Review Chair, and I am so excited to see all of your faces online today for our 2023 grant application training. I'm joined by Marty Olson, our nonprofit liaison, Tammy Storkel, our Finance Review Chair, Lori Van Antwerp, our Finance Review Co-Chair, and very exciting, our 2023 President, Sam Carnes. Sam, would you like to kick us off with a general overview?
Yeah, I would love to. First of all, thank you everyone for being here today. I know that you're all very busy doing really important work in our community. So we appreciate you taking the time. We are Impact 100 Traverse City. We are one of many Impact chapters across the country. Impact, you'll hear a little bit from our founder in a video that we're going to play in just a little bit, but I think there are more than 60 Impact chapters across the country, as well as a few international chapters. The Traverse City chapter has existed since 2017. And in that time, we have awarded annual grants of $100,000 to as many organizations as we can. The number of grants that we can award depends on how many members we have each year. So each year we gather as many women as we can. And each member gives $1,000, and we pool all of that money together to grant out to local nonprofits in the same year in which we collect it. So that's really exciting. And we have since 2017 awarded nearly $1.8 million in our community. So we're super excited about that. Last year we had 336 members. So that allowed us to award 3 grants of $112,000 apiece. This year we're hoping to grant even more than that. So we are in our recruiting season right now. We will be gathering members between now and April 1st, just trying to get as many women together as we can so we can award as much money as possible to as many of you as possible.
Thank you so much, Sam. Now, a bit of housekeeping. Please feel free to have your camera on. We love seeing your face, but keep your mic on mute unless you have a question to ask. We ask you to come off of mute. That'll help with the recording quality and so that we're all heard. If you have any questions, please be sure to put them in the chat. We'll also make sure to move quickly through this material so that we have plenty of time for Q&A at the end. If you have not already done so, it's really helpful if you would change your display name on Zoom so that you have both your name and your organization. If you don't know how to do that, maybe Sam could put that in the chat for us. Otherwise, on your box, if you hover over your picture, there are 3 dots. Just click on those 3 dots, pull down, you'll see rename, and you can type it in there. Within Zoom, you can also find yourself on the participants list and go that way. Sam has already mentioned a little bit about what Impact 100 is, but we thought we'd go ahead and play a short video from Impact 100's founder, Wendy Steele. No, we won't. Tammy will tell us more first.
Thanks, Jody. Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to be part of Impact. I met Wendy Steele working at Huntington Bank many years ago, and she's the one who introduced me to Impact. So what is Impact? It is a successful global philanthropy model created by Wendy Steele in 2001 in Cincinnati. And, you know, her concept is really simple and powerful. She gathered a group of women together to each give $1,000 with the goal of impacting local nonprofit organizations in giving them each a grant of $100,000 apiece. And like Sam said, we have over 60 chapters worldwide. I'm sure Wendy didn't dream that it would grow this huge. But to Jody's point, can go ahead and play the video from her.
Hi, I'm Wendy Steele, and I'm the founder of Impact 100. I'd like to take a few minutes and tell you the story of how Impact 100 began. I had relocated to Cincinnati, Ohio. I quickly got involved in the community and I started meeting amazing people. And so as I would get involved in the nonprofits, and then I would call my new girlfriends and say, hey, I am helping out this agency and they really need you. Will you please come join me? What I heard were a lot of barriers. They would tell me things like, Wendy, I travel for my job, so I can't make regular meetings. Or they would say, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I can't really justify paying a babysitter $10 an hour, so I can come and volunteer with you. They had lots of reasons. Probably the most compelling was, I just don't have enough. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough to give. These barriers were real, and they were preventing women in Cincinnati from getting involved in their community. And I knew it was time for a change. And one summer, it was the summer of 2001, I got out my spiral notebook and I started writing down every barrier that had been shared with me. And then, one by one, I tried to overcome them. When I was finished on that spiral notebook, we had what is now known as the Impact 100 model. And so Impact 100 was designed to find a way to bring those women into community service, to empower them and remove the barriers they faced so that they could see what it felt like to be a part of the solution rather than wringing their hands over the problems that this lovely community faced. So I started writing a list of every woman that I knew, and then a little bit about her. In other words, how I knew her and what her skills were. And I didn't stop until I reached 100. And then I thought to myself, well, gosh, what if 100 women got together at least, and they each donated $1,000 and they pooled it all together? Wouldn't that be something? So the idea was born. If we can bring at least 100 women together to each donate $1,000, pool that money into a minimum grant of $100,000 and give it away in the same year that we collect it, that would be transformational. That would be powerful. And that would begin to really inspire these women. The money would stay local, and these women would be a part of something far bigger than themselves.
Thanks, Jody.
Well, thank you so much. And you heard it from Wendy Steele. Wendy, again, founded this in Cincinnati in 2001. We've been in existence since 2017. I know that many on this call, on this panel beside me, have also been in since our founding year. It's been tremendous because ultimately we're calling women into philanthropy, and they're inspired to do so because of the work that you're doing. Part of the model.
Hi, I'm Wendy Minutes and tell you the story.
You've heard enough from Wendy. Part of the model I don't know how to advance. Oh, I swear I've used Zoom before. I also swear that I practiced this before the call. Let's see if I move this box. Of all of your faces, I can see what I need to. Here we go. Part of this model that makes us transformational is that we ask our nonprofits to apply in one of 5 focus areas: arts and culture, education, environment, preservation, recreation, family, health and wellness, and family. And we seek to serve those nonprofits that are serving our 5-county region. We consider that Grand Traverse, Antrim, Leelanau, Benzie, and Kalkaska. In creating the model, these 5 focus areas were designed so that any nonprofit or any program which might truly be transformational for our community would fall into one of these categories. Now, your initiative or your organization may serve any number of them, but it's really up to you to determine where your transformational initiative that you'll apply with falls. So arts and culture we define as charitable initiatives that cultivate, develop, educate, and improve the cultural climate of our community. Education, those initiatives further the ability to educate and improve our education system. Environment, preservation, and recreation, they preserve, enhance, revitalize, or restore facilities and surroundings in our 5-county region. Family, strengthen and enhance the lives of children and families. And health and wellness, positively impact mental or physical health and wellness. It's important to note that, again, you could have an organization like a land conservancy that has a program specifically designed for health and wellness, or you might be an education organization that wants to implement an arts program. So ultimately, we're looking for you to rank your initiative that you're applying under in one of these 5 focus areas. Ranking is important because we ultimately endeavor to make sure that your initiative is then reviewed by our focus area committees in your top choice. You'll see in the application in just a bit that it is a ranking, so you will go through indicating 1 through 5 where you believe your initiative will fall. You may fit more than one focus area, but only choose one. And also, you must choose for yourself. You might call and say, hey, what do you think this best falls under? But ultimately, we defer to you because that will be where your organization is reviewed. Wendy Steele just led a call with chapters from around the world last week about how to inspire nonprofits to apply. One of the things that I found most compelling about that call was she encouraged the organizations to think about the fact that when it comes time to vote and our finalists are presenting in their focus areas, our members are not selecting or voting on the focus area. They're voting on the most transformational initiative. And in these focus areas, when you're being reviewed against other applicants and we're whittling down to those finalists, they're really looking for the transformational initiative. So I do want to place the importance on both of the things, that this ultimately determines which bucket you'll be reviewed in, but ultimately the ability to receive a transformational grant is based on the application's quality in itself. All right, so I would like to more extensively introduce Marty Olson, our nonprofit liaison. You've likely already received an email from her if you've been to any of our events or out in the community, really for any number of years. You've likely met Marty. She's deeply involved in the nonprofit community. We're so fortunate to have her as our liaison with you. She helps communicate through the application process, through grant award. So ultimately, if you are successful in receiving a grant from us, you will continue to correspond with her about participation in events, reporting, and receiving our financial distributions. Marty, will you tell us a little bit more?
I certainly will. First of all, I'd like to welcome everybody here today. We are so thrilled. We have over 60 registrants involved today, representing over 50 organizations. That's great. And I have to make a little comment here that I've been in the nonprofit world for quite some time now, and it never fails to amaze me the support for our communities and the fact that there are new nonprofits that are signing up for this and supporting our communities in every way. And during this registration timeframe for this actual presentation, we probably have 10 to 12 new nonprofits that I personally have never heard of. So kudos to all of you, and we're so welcoming you here and hope you take away some wonderful things from this grant training operation here we've got. I've got a little bit of the dry subject. Oh, just a little bit. I've been with Impact since there were 4 people around a cocktail table. and one of them was Wendy Steele. So I'm probably the oldest member, at least on this call, and it's been a great run, and the women that are involved are absolutely amazing. All right, on to the subject at hand. The grants eligibility overview. My subjects are a little bit dry, so I'm going to go quickly through them, but they're basically a little bit of guidelines as far as what we're looking for. Okay, so what do you have to have? You need to be a 501c3 for sure. Jody, can you move the slide forward one? And thank you. And you can, by the time we receive your application, you have to have that 501c3 in hand. You also need to be based in one of the 5 counties that we cover. Our applications come from any of this 5-county area, and so your base needs to be here. You also need to be free of any kind of legal or pending conflicts. We want to make sure that you have a clean slate before we grant any funds to you. Thank you. Impact wants the initiatives to be transformational and sustainable. Above and beyond the basic guidelines of grants, the transformational aspect is highly important to impact, along with being sustainable. You're going to hear sustainable again and again and again, that the grant absolutely needs to, the initiative that we grant has to be sustainable past the 24-month timeframe. So you need to have a plan for sustainability. But let's just talk about transformational for just a second. Next, thank you. So there you go, perfect. Transformational. This is how we define transformational, and it's pretty basic. Innovating in a new way, deepening more often, or expanding your service to a new population. In every grant that we've given out in the last, it'll be 6-7 years now, there's been something that has brought a new aspect, a different aspect, a farther reaching aspect to the nonprofit that we've granted. This is important. While you're delivering the 10-minute, if you become a finalist, it's what are you bringing new? We want to take you to the next step in your organization. We don't want to pay for your electric light bulb or whatever, we don't want to pay for staff salaries, but we will get into that in a little bit. There are some exceptions to that. But what we want to do is we want to help you take your organization to the next step. Transformational solves a problem in a community versus helping with an existing mission. It pursues change instead of being centered on organizational needs. It's visionary instead of fundraising, and it's innovative instead of focusing on actions and not outcomes. So anyway, moving on, we'll say which eligibles are, okay. So anyway, initiatives that are eligible for Impact TC funding, you must have a total budget project that equals the amount of the Impact 100 grant. Last year, we gave away $112,000 per each grant. You can't apply for a $50,000 grant. You have to have the capacity to apply and use that whole amount. You also need to expend within 24 months of the award date. After you are granted, there are reporting timeframes from 3, 6, 10, 15 months, and then up to 24 months if you need to be extended to that amount of time. There are exceptions to this. During COVID, I believe, and actually I know, the 2020 grantees all needed extensions due to supply chains, due to construction backlogs. there was one reason after another, and we're all very familiar with what those reasons were. So that's why I stay in basically constant touch with the grantees during the initiative payouts, distributions, and until their initiatives basically are finished and they've gone to fruition. But we're pretty open-minded, and I stay in touch, and we have approval if needed for extensions with extenuating circumstances. Number 3, you need to rank your focus areas in the order of applicability to the initiative that Jody went over. You have to pick those, and that is entirely up to you. Almost every grantee or every applicant could have picked 1 or 2 different focus areas to apply to. You also seriously need to have a plan for sustainability. That is absolutely huge. After the 24-month time frame, we want to make sure that your initiative has a future. And so you need to make sure that we understand what your plan for is to take that into the future with you. Okay, what initiatives are not eligible for funding? Debt reduction. We don't want to pay your past bills, sorry. No grants to individuals. We aren't granting to Joe Smith. Endowment funding, that's a whole different ballgame that we don't want to get involved in. No interim or bridge funding between loans and or et cetera. No political activity. No capital improvements or renovations to property for a project where you, as the organization, might be denied access at some point. So if you're renting a building and you have a 3 to 5 year lease, and you want to make some improvements to that, that would not be applicable to Impact 100. Now, if you own your building and you need to make some improvements to expand your project or your initiative or your mission to your clientele, that comes into play. And then a project of an individual church, religious organization, or body of worship for its own benefit. We don't do that. But at the same point in time, if you were a body of worship and you put on a food pantry or a meal program for homeless or people in need or your community, your hungry community, that's a whole different project, and we welcome those. Okay. Oh, yes, this is a big one. In order to be considered for funding, applications must be complete and include all the required information and attachments. Now, this sounds very simple, but there are financials that need to be uploaded. There are executive summaries. There's all kinds of information. And if you're familiar with writing any kind of grants, this is fairly common. But we can't emphasize this enough, because after the grants are submitted, if there are incomplete items in these grants, these are, we'll try to make a call, but these are the first ones that get cut, unfortunately. So please, please, please make sure that everything is complete before you hit submit. So anyway, I think that's about where I am.
Thank you so much, Marty. I would just note that we are a member-driven organization. We're here to really make transformational in the community through the good work that you're doing. We are all volunteers. There is no paid staff. There is no executive director. We don't have a paid grant review team. We are doing this as volunteers. So all of us on this call today are on this call because we're very passionate about the work that you're doing and the transformational initiatives that you'll bring forward. Similarly, our focus area committees are all volunteers. Our financial review committees are all volunteers, and it helps us tremendously in reviewing your application if all of the information we've requested is there. There are a number of things that have posted in the chat, so I just did want to call out that if you are curious about the types of initiatives that we have funded in the past, please visit our website under impacttc.org/r-impact. You'll get an idea of the wide variety of initiatives that we're very proud to have funded to this point. And then also being transformational, again, doesn't necessarily mean that it's a brand new program or initiative, but it does need to expand or deepen the services that you may already be providing. All right, we'll now dig into our review process with an overview and a timeline so that you can be sure to plan accordingly and mark your calendars. It is an extensive process. We operate on an annual basis. We, from gathering our members, recruiting them, through inviting you to apply, to doing the review, having the annual meeting, and starting all again. But I cannot express enough that our members are doing this because they enjoy learning about your organizations. They enjoy the pride of knowing that all $1,000 of their member contribution is being pooled together and then granted out to you. As Tina Poindexter says, the favorite part of her process, or this process to her, is learning about so many wonderful organizations and the amazing work that they're doing, and being able to see this come to fruition. So again, check out our website if you'd like to see some of those that we've already funded. All right. Submitted applications, as we've noted, will be assigned to one of our 5 focus area committees. We do that based on your ranking. We endeavor to honor that ranking, but we do, we have had just a few occasions where we've had to redistribute. We do that so that everyone has the best opportunity, both from the member committee standpoint as well as the applications. The applications, including the financial information and attachments, must be submitted with the application. They will then be read, reviewed, and scored by the members of the assigned focus area committees. Once they are through an initial review, they move to our finance review committee. Not that any of you would remember, because it was hard for us to remember here in Impact. It was formerly known as CIRC, our Community Investment Review Committee. We have renamed that to be more clear. It's now the Finance Review Committee. They then do a deeper dive on the finances. We'll hear from Tammy and Lori here in a bit. Once the finance review is completed, then those applications go back to the focus area committees, and they'll reach out to those that have made it through those initial 2 gates to schedule a site visit. Once the site visit is completed, the committees will select their finalists, and those finalists are announced at our Meet the Finalists event. We ask in the application that executive summaries be submitted, because after the Meet the Finalists event, we circulate those summaries to our members in advance of the annual meeting so that they can come informed about each of the initiatives and prepared to vote. Now, many of our members will come to that annual meeting having read the executive summaries and prepared to vote, but this is ultimately the time for our finalists to present on their initiatives, given only one speaker and a microphone, a clock set to 10 minutes. Tammy normally mans that clock as our finance review chair, because we know she's good with numbers. So you do, though, have to stay within that 10-minute presentation. I think that Tammy's least favorite thing to do at the annual meeting is stand up and begin to clap when your 10 minutes have concluded, if you are still talking. We've noted there that the presentation time is subject to change. We just are highlighting that because we are striving to get to 4 grants this year, in which case that would expand our field of nonprofits and maybe alter our timeline a bit. We will determine the presentation order by random selection at the finalist announcement. So that's completely just determined by chance. After the finalist presentations are completed, right then and there, we will ask our membership to vote. It's one woman, one vote. So each woman will then, similar to you with your focus area selections, rank vote the finalists to decrease that opportunity for a tie vote. And we will announce the winners at the conclusion of the meeting. There are 3 major events throughout the year. There's our big reveal, which will be in April. That's when we announce how many members we have and therefore how much we'll be giving away in funding. Our Meet the Finalists, which is the culmination of all of that review work, where we announce which finalists have been selected from each of the focus areas. And then finally that annual meeting, which is the most exciting work. We find out who will be receiving those transformational grants for that grant cycle. Stated another way, the big reveal is on April 26th. That's the first of our big 3 events from the member side. The grant application will open at midnight, so you can dive right in and get started. There are approximately 4 weeks to write that grant application. Grant applications are due May 26th, so just prior to Memorial Day. I then have 3 days to turn around those grant applications and send them out to each of the focus areas so that they can begin their review. The focus area committees will conduct their reviews through predominantly the month of June. Again, looking for the initial pass of, is this grant application transformational? Does it meet our mission? They will then pass that off to the Finance Review Committee for Finance Review at the beginning of July. They'll do their deep dive into the finances, really looking for, does the initiative budget make sense? Is the organization sustainable? If they receive this kind of grant award, do they have the capacity to spend it? They will then send their decisions back to the focus area committees by August 9th. Over the next 2 weeks, site visits will occur, and ultimately finalists selected by the 23rd, so that we can plan for our finalists or the Meet the Finalists event. No work is necessary on behalf of our finalists for the Meet the Finalists other than their happy attendance and then however method that we select for choosing the order at the annual meeting. There are approximately 4 weeks between the Meet the Finalists and the annual meeting so that we can both prepare for that event, and you, if selected as a finalist, can prepare your 10-minute presentation. If you like to view all of that information another way, there is a timeline shown here with all of those specific dates shown with a description. It's included in your packet as well if you wanted to print that out and put it on your calendar. All right, writing your grant application. Marty, it's your turn. Kicking it back to you.
It is. I just do want to make a special note here. I sent out the packet to all the registrants yesterday, and if you were a last-minute registrant, no worries, you will receive that as soon as this presentation is over. So I'm going to go through a few things right now that are included in this packet, and all the things that we're going through basically are included in your packet. And we do have, we are recording this video as well. So I've already got a list for some people who could not sign up for this, could receive the recording in the packet as well. So no worries there. Okay, writing your grant application. I'm going to go through some grant writing tips and recommendations. Now, you have a very long list of grant writing tips and recommendations in your packet, and you can go ahead and advance one slide, Jody. But I'm not going to go through all of them. And here we have some great pictures of some of our grantees holding their big checks, which is just, you know, this is the most heartwarming moment of the year. Everyone is basically almost in tears. So we hope that this can be one of you or 3 of you or 4 of you this year. But regardless of that, many of you are new organizations, and we hope that this grant training gives you all kinds of information. There are many, many times where we will have new nonprofits sign up for this grant training, and after they make their way through it, they will say, wow, we're really just not ready. And then they'll go back to their organizations, take a year, look at what they have to do, and then come back. And, I've got goosebumps right now because some of my, my favorite fun little organizations came back, applied, and were grantees. And that's really what we're trying to achieve, beyond the, gifting and granting of the funds, to all of your initiatives. What we want to do is help raise up the nonprofit community and help those smaller new ones take the next steps that they need to be able to achieve what they're doing for all of our communities. Okay, enough about that. I'm going to go back into some dry stuff again, but grant writing tips and recommendations. Like I said, big laundry list in the packet. I'm just going to go through a few of them because many of you have written grants. Some of you haven't written grants. The other thing that I really, really encourage is normally the two people that are writing the grants, you've got somebody who's good with prose, who writes the narrative, who writes the executive summary, and you've got somebody who's really good with the numbers. And normally they are not the same person. So they need to work very closely together because you're telling the same story, and you have to make sure that the numbers tell the story of the narrative and the narrative tells the story of the numbers, because they all have to meet in the middle and they need to make sense to us. Okay, so just a few of these. Follow the guidelines in the handout to write a cohesive and compelling proposal. And while you're not graded on grammar and punctuation, it does make a bit of an impression. A big pro tip, and I do this in my own work life and, with some of my coworkers in the nonprofit people that we work with, is I write an email or I write a proposal and I have someone else read it who knows nothing about it, and vice versa. And we always come back with corrections just because what you think I know is not what I know, and vice versa. So make sure, my suggestion is to have somebody, maybe a board member or just someone that you trust to read your grant application. Does it make sense? Are you filling in all the spaces? Does it flow the right way? Are you assuming that they know something that they don't know? Anyway, that just makes it easier for our focus groups to get through your application with full understanding without having to go back to you to ask questions. Okay, a few more little things. I'm still going to go through a few little things here. Write your executive summary last. That's the culmination of your grant. And we use that executive summary to send out to the membership in order to give them advance information for voting. Very, very, very important. Budgets communicate the priorities of the organization. I kind of already touched on that, but that you got the drift. Don't assume the reader is familiar with community or organization. Make sure you explain what you do, how you do it, why you do it, and who you do it for. Okay, now we'll move on. Okay, declines. What we don't do is we don't give individual feedback on why your application may have been declined. And the reason for this is, and this is in the packet, and you can review this afterwards, but our organization and our review, not the process, but the people change every year. So the level of applications may change within these focus areas. The people may change in these focus areas. So what we've done instead is since 2017, we have kept a list of why an application may have been declined. And we supply this list to you. And I suggest that you read this list before you submit your application. because if one of these might apply to you, this is something you probably need to deal with. So application's incomplete. We've already touched on that. Your budget is unclear. Your funding's for operational costs instead of a transformational project. Your vision isn't clearly articulated, or you have vague goals. There's more on the next slide. Thanks. I went through this last night, so I knew exactly where we were on these slides. Project funding is dedicated to staff salaries. It's for capital that's already spent. Usage of funds is unclear, especially for larger projects with several funding sources. That can be a little tricky if your initiative is a $300,000 price tag and we're $100,000 of it. We need to know what's pending, what's committed, where your donor funds are coming from. You know, we need all that information before we can say, okay, we're going to allocate this fund to this organization to make sure that it is viable and it's going to go forward and come to fruition. Okay, just a couple other basic ones. Sustainability. Okay, we've hit on this another time, can't emphasize that enough. Initiative was more organizational than transformational. The project's already started. It's hard to grant money to something that's already on its way. We'd have to do some budget and some redoing on some reissuing, and there would just be way too many questions. So anyway, that's pretty much why we might decline your application. So giving you all these reasons ahead of time, I'm sure that all your applications will just slide through. And
I would like to.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Done.
I just wanted to note, in terms of sustainability, of course, we do recognize that there are some programs where the initiative may only be intended to last a year or two to conduct some transformational change in our community. But we do want to believe then that there's some way to measure that sustained impact in our community, or that the organizations themselves that are conducting this have the sustainability as an organization to continue to last. So even if it's a one and done program, we do want to make sure that the impact is lasting and the organizations that are applying are going to be sticking around and making change. We're now going to dig into the actual application itself. We use a platform called Submittable. 100% of the member contributions go to you, but the, oh, great. Can you hear me? My AirPods. I've been on the tech struggle bus this morning.
So I do apologize. I did attempt to solve through all of these things yesterday. And here we are today. So we use Submittable. 100% of our member contributions go to you. They go to those transformational grants. However, we do have some procedural things in our completely volunteer organization. Submittable being one of them that we're most proud of, because it is our attempt to make this process of submitting your application as streamlined as possible. Some things to note, because it is a third-party platform, you will need to set up your own account for submitting the grant application. You will then receive all official communications regarding your application through that Submittable account, including questions or requests for additional information. This platform helps us both on your side, the grant applicant side, to submit all of the information, and then also on the review side so that we can communicate with one another and then back with you. The submitter should be someone who is monitoring the email account for the duration of the application review period. This is incredibly important. If you have someone either on your staff or you have a grant writer that you have hired, and they submit the application with their own email address, and then we request additional information, or we let you know that you've been selected for a site visit, they might not forward it on. We need the submitter to be the one who will receive that information and be responsible for that correspondence. So please do keep that in mind when you're setting up that account and ultimately clicking the submit box. For the financial information section, there are several portions of the application where you will be required to submit financial information. This information is confidential to our reviewers. We make everyone sign forms that ultimately they are being good stewards of this information. You'll be prompted throughout the application to upload various files that you'll hear more about in a bit from Tammy and Lori. All right, the actual application. A copy of the full application has been printed to PDF and is in the training packet that was provided to you, but we will walk through this. A very nice summary of all of the information that you're hearing today is provided right at the face of the application. So once it opens on April 27th, we will know how many grants will be awarded and the total dollar amount of each. You'll have approximately 4 weeks to submit. It must be submitted by 5:59 p.m. Eastern time. It shuts off at 6 o'clock. So please be sure if you are waiting until the very last day to submit, that you click submit before 5:59, hopefully well in advance of even the 26th. But if you wait until the 26th, make sure that it's well in advance of 5:59 in the event that there's any sort of technical issue like I've been having today. So then diving right in. Some of this information is really straightforward. Of course, you're going to know the legal name of your organization. If you have any aliases, we love to be able to promote the initiatives by a title. So please name your initiative and enter it there. We've touched a little bit about the types of initiatives that we'll fund. It's important to select whether it's program or capital. A program initiative is going to be something that is likely a service that's being conducted by your organization. A capital initiative ultimately is going to hit that balance sheet. So are you acquiring equipment? Is it a mobile van? Is it an expansion of your building? You would select that there. If we haven't hit on it enough, the importance of ranking your initiative in one of the 5 focus areas being the first, you'll just rate them as given in an example above. So 1 through 5, with 1 being the initiative focus area you think is most applicable, 5 being the least. As I noted, the applicant submitter contact person is really important. This year, we have also added, if there's a secondary contact person, to please enter them there. So again, if you do have a grant writer that's assisting, we can make sure that we are able to contact you throughout the process. We endeavor to make transformational change in our 5-county region. So we do need you to tell us which counties would be impacted by this initiative. A huge part of making this investment in transformational change through the award of these $100,000 or more grants is making sure that there is the leadership in place to execute on these plans. And so please include your leadership information here. We also like to know how many board positions you have and how many of them are filled, because that can give us some insight into the continuity of your leadership. It's a small community, so please do also list your current board of directors. If this is a co-application, so if you are not the only organization that is going to be responsible for implementing this initiative, we ask for you to indicate that you have a co-applicant. Examples of this in our current roster of grant recipients, for instance, would be the Child and Family Services and Youth Works program. They applied for a grant together and listed each other as a co-applicant, which meant then we also needed information for both co-applicants. So if you do click yes, you will also be prompted throughout the application to add additional information about the co-applicants. Marty, do you have anything to add there?
We can come back off mute here. No, not really. There are some times where also you might, if you didn't have a 501c3, you would also be under a fiduciary. So, and you'll touch on that. But no, I think you've got it. Thank you.
All right. As Marty has mentioned, in terms of eligibility, the applicants must be free of litigation. So we do want to have your affirmation that there is no potential litigation if you were to be awarded and funds redirected from their intended purpose. Of course, we do have some mechanisms on our end to track your progress along the way. Again, more information about how the organization is structured more holistically, because we do want to make sure that the transformational grants are going to organizations that have the capacity. For background and history, there's applicant's vision statement and mission statement. If you do not have a vision statement, don't be afraid to just put NA, but do please include your mission statement. If you've had to file a 990, there's something likely listed there. It's probably also somewhere on your website, but please do let us know what your actual mission is. And then more about your organization. We would love to hear in your own words a brief description of your organization. So that would include perhaps its history, how it operates, the population that it serves. You can include that information there. There are points indicated throughout this application to give you some idea of how they're weighted. When we go to review, there are also word limits. You do not have to fill the entire word limit. So if you can say what your organization does, give us a brief history, describe the population in 450 words, you can save yourself the 300 and move on.
Hey, Jody, I just want to.
The next set of questions really starts to dig into the initiative. This is really the meat of what we're looking for. So if you would please describe the narrative of the initiative. Ultimately, this executive summary helps us for a high-level overview in that first pass of, is this transformational, and do we want to consider it for financial review and site visit? But then also in selecting a finalist, we will use these executive summaries to communicate with our broader membership. We hope, as Marty had mentioned, that this application and this process is bringing women into philanthropy, but also elevating nonprofits. So depending on your maturity or the size of your organization, this might all be old hat, and you have much of this already saved from other applications. If this is something that's new for your growing nonprofit, then we hope that this is encouraging you to consolidate all of this information into one place and perhaps prepare you to apply for other grants as well.
There are a couple of questions in the chat that I just want to make sure we address. One person had wanted to know for staff, are we asking about only paid positions or also full-time volunteers? I know we skipped over it a little bit quickly, but there are actually two separate sections for that. So you would put in your number of staff in one box, and then there's a separate section for you to put in the number of volunteers that you have. Also, we've had a couple people ask about newer organizations applying, who don't have, like an established financial history. And whether or not, it would be beneficial for them to partner with a more established organization. And members of FRC, please feel free to weigh in on this, but if your organization is so new that you haven't completed a full fiscal year yet, you would probably find it beneficial to partner with a more established organization. When two organizations are applying in partnership, they do not both need to fill out an application. I saw that question in the chat also. Only one organization is going to fill out the application. But there is a section at the end, which Jody will get to, for information from the partnership organization. The person or the entity who's filling out the education or the application should be the one who is going to be responsible for the administration of the funds. So the primary applicant, that's who the funds are going to be issued to. So they are the fiduciary, and then the co-applicant, their information will go at the end. So Jody will show you that section in just a little bit.
Well, thank you so much, Sam, because I lost all audio.
No.
I have no idea what you just said, but I am sure that it was amazing. So if you would please tell me where we are, I'm happy to pick up from there.
I think we're ready to move on from where you are on the screen right now.
Okay, perfect. Have you already talked about goals, objectives, outcomes, and indicators?
We have not.
All right, well then let's dive in. All right, so one of the key areas is, after you've described your initiative to us, we want to be able to know how success will be measured. So there is a description here of what we consider goal, objectives, outcomes, and indicators. These are things that maybe you've already discussed in leadership team meetings, but we would like to know specifically for this initiative how Marty will be able to know when she contacts you throughout the year, or any of our successor nonprofit liaisons, that you're tracking, because we need to be able to confirm back to our membership that transformational change truly is occurring in our community. So if you're launching a program, for instance, and you seek to serve an expanded number of students, that would be a great metric. You might then be able to monitor beyond the number of students that you reached, what kind of change was made in their lives. So really pulling together both the quantifiable and the subjective measures. I can describe them there. Again, there's 1,500 word limit. We want you to have at it. There might be all ways, shapes, and forms that you expect this initiative to change the community, and how you're going to measure that success, but you don't have to feel obligated to fill all 1,500 words. We just want to make sure that you have plenty of space to do so. The planning and implementation timeline is important to us, again, for verifying that our grant cycle of 15 months in the most recent years, up to 24 months with an extension, is able to be fulfilled. So here we very commonly see either a word list, a bulleted list of, by this date we plan to do this. It might be in an Excel file. Ultimately, we're just looking for what your timeline is for implementing this program. And as you'll see in section 3, who will be responsible, because we need to believe that you have organizational capacity and key individuals or collaborators already identified and selected, so that you can implement this if awarded on our timeline, our internal timeline for distribution, but then your timeline, as you will indicate above in that attached file. We'd also like to know how this initiative fits with your current strategic plan. So if you are, I won't give an example, but we want to make sure that this initiative aligns with the general direction of your organization and that mission statement that you've included above. For sustainability of the proposed initiative, I think that we've touched on this in a number of ways in describing what we believe is a transformational initiative, what we have seen as common reasons for declination. We would like to see how the initiative survives in this community and impacts it over time. So ultimately describing the sustainability of the program or your organization. We have arrived at the financial section of the application. One of the things that we hear is that we have a very extensive organization. Indeed, we do. It's a $100,000 or more grant, and we have up to this year or last year, 336 women learning about the initiative and having to have confidence that it will truly be transformational and that the organization that applied will be sustainable. So we need to provide that confirmation through our committees, one of which is the Finance Review Committee. So Tammy Storkel, Lori Van Antwerp, would you please take it away?
Sure. Thanks, Jody. So Lori and I work together with our committee, and we are fortunate to have a wide variety of ladies that serve on our committee with different backgrounds. And the forms that Jody has back in 2017, I think she's the one that helped develop these forms, which we're trying to make it as easy as possible because we know this is a lot of work for you, our nonprofits, while you're applying for these grants. But it's very important to us to look at trends with your nonprofit. The more information you can give us, if the numbers just don't look right, Lori will dive into the forms in a minute, but for example, if your revenues are declining or you had 1 year of decline, if you could just tell us, you know, what you think happened or what did happen, that would give us a better look into your organization's financial health. So Lori, do you want to cover the forms?
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Thank you.
So I think I'll go over the initiative budget form first. Okay, there we are. It's currently filled in based on last year's grant amount. So after the big reveal on April 26th, we will update that with the current grant. But we asked, as Marty mentioned, that the person that fills out these financial forms is your primary finance person, your treasurer, your bookkeeper, who it is, whoever has the most knowledge and understanding of your finances would be great if they could be the one filling this out. So for this revenue section, this is describing the sources that will be funding your initiative or your project. And the two columns, we have the committed and pending. Well, I should step back. We ask that you fill in all of the green cells. The rest of the cells will just fill in automatically. So the committed column is cash you have on hand that's designated for this project, or grants that you have applied for and have been told by that organization that you will be receiving those funds. They're committed for you. The other column is pending. So that would be the impact grant, as well as any other grants that you are in the process of applying for. We have it separated by some different categories. If you run out of room in some of those categories, feel free to fill it in the other column, the other row at the bottom. And if you need to describe that further, you can do that in the initiative budget or in the narrative that's included in the application as well. The next section below is the expenses. So if you could just follow those lines as best you can. And again, if you have something specific that isn't listed there, throw it in the other row and then just explain it in the narrative. And as you're filling these out, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us using the email that we have at grants@impacttc.org. Any questions are welcome. We want to make sure that you understand what we need and that we can make this as easy as possible for you. So Jody, if you want to scan down to the next page. Okay, so In addition to submitting your specific financials, we're asking that you complete this form. So this form is in the packet that has all the numbers, but then there's one that's blank that we ask that you complete all the green cells. And we, at a minimum, would like 3 full years included in the spreadsheet. There's columns for 4, but at the end of the day, we want 3 full years using the same source of information. So 3 years of tax returns, 3 years of financials, whatever. It is just so that we're comparing apples to apples. We have that extra year in there because seems like many organizations have different year ends, and so want to make sure that you have some flexibility to fill in these columns based on the correct year that applies. And to piggyback on Marty's comment about if you're a newer organization and waiting until you have a full year's tax return, we're asking for 3 years. So if you are a couple of years into your project and you don't have a full 3 years, but you feel good that your project meets our requirements being transformational, you can submit. Don't feel like you have to wait until you yourself have a full 3 years. And then new this year, we have added 2 columns for the interim financials. And this goes along with your year ends, not many year ends not being 12/31. So if we get your 22 numbers, they may be as of March of 22, and we're already going to be in April of 23. So we'd like to see some interim numbers. And interim numbers through your most recent 2023 with a prior year comparison. And the reason why we ask for that is if you're just a few years into your cycle and a few months into your year, and that the beginning part of your year, you don't make as much revenue and you show losses, we'd like to compare that to the prior year to see if that's typical. So a lot of our businesses are cyclical or seasonal in our area. You may also have that as a nonprofit. So if that's the case and you're showing a negative for 2023 and a negative for 2022, but we look at your year end for 2022 and you have a profit and things turned around, that just shows us that you are also a seasonal business and that those numbers make sense. So, sorry, I'm kind of a numbers nerd, and so I kind of go off on tangents. So I'll try to rein it in a little bit. If you go over to the far right, there's a column for notes. And if you could fill in anything that would be useful to us that won't jump out, that we won't know. As Tammy mentioned, if there's trends, if you have, say, a law or a reduction in revenues for last year as we compare it to the prior year, maybe in that prior year you had a big capital campaign. And so you had lots of revenue recognized in that year for a specific project. If we don't know that, we may look at it and think that there's maybe a concern and that you're not getting as much support this year. Another thing that's common is one-time expenses. So say you had to buy a specific piece of equipment, or you had to repair your roof or something like that, hopefully is a one-time thing or something that doesn't happen on a regular basis. If you could note that and even quantify it and explain the dollar amount that you, the amount of that expense, that would be helpful in us understanding the trends of the business. Another thing that we look at is the fundraising. So line 15, we have the fundraising events, and then line 23, we have the fundraising expenses. So we'll look at those 2 things, and hopefully the funds that you used for this fundraiser, hopefully you've made more than you spent. But if you didn't, if you can explain that, sometimes a newer nonprofit will do some fundraising events that don't generate as much as they would like, but it really is just to get the name out there and to get people talking about the organization. So if you could just fill us in and that kind of stuff. That would be very helpful. Like there was one more thing. Yeah, I think that's it. So I'll turn it back over to Jody.
Thanks so much, Lori. This is not intended to be daunting for our organizations that are on the call today are considering applying for a grant. However, we do need to have confidence in the sustainability of the organization, and the initiative budget does need to make sense. Our members are looking to each of our focus area committees and our finance review committee to be good stewards throughout the grant review process. And of course, we're serving our 5-county area. So if our members aren't familiar with you, we want them to be really excited about receiving your application. For the information for prior years, it's really intended to be paint by numbers. So if you do file a 990, that you can look to the relevant lines on your 990 to just fill it in there. And then with the interim statements, again, we're looking for how you're tracking so far, particularly coming out of some years that likely look very different as a result of COVID. So you can just pull your financial statements, whether they're out of QuickBooks or some other method there. Moving back, before we leave, the forms that were just reviewed, if you want to go ahead and get a jump start on talking to your accountant or finance person, or if you even would love to think about how these trends look for your organization when you're communicating with your own boards or your staff, to look and see, oh, wow, revenues are up or down over the past few years, or look at some of the other financial performance ratios that aren't just applicable to for-profit businesses, but also very relevant to nonprofits. You can see those financial performance ratios. They're down at the bottom. So you can use that as an opportunity to really impress your boards at your next meeting. Those are available on our website. The initiative budget is just a placeholder for now until we know what our grant awards will be for 2023. But you can look at that example financial summary online. Back to the grant application itself. So you'll be prompted to submit the files. You can either print them to PDF or upload them as Excel. In each of these places include a budget narrative as described. And then of course we do, as one of our requirements, require that your organization, receiving organization, is a 501c3. So if you could upload that determination letter, surely you have some of this information already shared and consolidated in one place. If not, this is a great time to know where to go out and grab your 990s or that 501c3 letter. We had a question in the chat. I think that Lori already covered that, but you do not have to have an audit. You don't really even have to have 990s. We've had organizations that are small enough that they had to submit only a 990 EZ, but we do want you to still do your best to submit comparable information as we're communicating this to our review committees. All right, if you had selected that you had a co-applicant, you'll also be prompted to submit some financial information on behalf of them as well. And then finally, memorandum of understanding. We want to know for sure that if you're submitting an application with a co-applicant, that you have agreed amongst yourselves how that program will be implemented. So please do follow the guidance there on what should be included in the MOU. That will only be prompted for upload if you have checked yes, there is a co-applicant. Otherwise, if you're just a single organization submitting, you can ignore it and agree to our terms of use. So just a quick statement regarding our terms of use. If you agree to them, you can move on and submit the form. Very important. I don't know how many of you have been in Excel or Word and lost your work. I'm surprised it hasn't happened to me this morning with all my other tech issues, but Submittable will not automatically save your application. So if you're filling out one section and then you need to go and get the financials, or you're waiting on some more information on the initiatives, but you can go ahead and get started on all of the organization's mission and background, save draft. So scroll down and save draft before you exit the page. You can go in and out however many times you want to. Go in early and often. Make sure that you are having someone submit or read it before you click submit, but please do always save your draft. And then finally, you will submit your application. The points, as I mentioned, just help weight how we believe the application will be reviewed by our focus areas. We've noted that one of the primary reasons that an organization may not be considered is incomplete information and attachments. So please do make sure before you click submit that everything has been uploaded. We're an all-volunteer organization, and we would hate for you to have a tremendous initiative only to be like deselected for lack of a complete application. So please do make sure that everything has been uploaded. All of the fields are complete before you click submit, and we are then notified as soon as the application is submitted. I don't believe in our video, Wendy Steele had said that Impact 100 is only as powerful as our members and as transformational as the nonprofits that apply. Really, we can only exist because of the work that you do. So we're seeking to bring women into philanthropy and inspire you to do big things. Our commitment to transparency, I miss more circs. So our focus committees and our finance review committee must acknowledge the grant review conflict of interest and loyalty policy. We endeavor to have a fair and transparent review process both across our membership for Impact 100, but also to build confidence with our nonprofit community. So our members, before they begin the review process, have to attest that they'll abide by its terms and disclose any real potential or apparent conflict of interest or loyalty. We similarly on the board of directors have to make attestation that will abide by a code of ethics, code of conflict of interest policy, and conflict of loyalty guidelines. Ultimately, we are holding up the integrity of this process. We want the nonprofit community and our members to believe that we can truly be transformational, and a huge part of that is having that trust and confidence. So we're putting these safeguards into place. We have had a couple of events where a woman has perhaps felt particularly strongly about a focus area, only to have a organization upon which she may serve as a board member apply, in which case we do ask her to recuse herself from participating in that grant review area. But as it is one woman, one vote, you'll probably rest assured that she voted for that organization if they were selected to be a finalist by that focus committee that she did not participate on. But again, it's really important for us that the entire process remain fair and transparent to everyone involved. It is 11:19, so I will stop here. We have this nice, exciting video to share, but I know that there are a bunch of questions I've missed in the chat. So let's go ahead and open this for questions for now. If there's anyone that has any questions, be happy to take them. Otherwise, I'll reshare screen and play that video. If you
and
haven't,
oh, go ahead, Jody.
no, go ahead.
I was just, there were people asking in the chat if this presentation will be sent out and if you can share it with others. Yes, and yes. We are recording this. We will send it out to everyone. And please feel free to pass it on to anyone that you think might be interested. It will also be posted on the grants page of our website. The full application from last year is also there. So that you can see all of the questions and the financial forms that were shown are also on the website.
As noted here, if you have any questions, you can always contact us at grants@impacttc.org. Either myself or Marty will respond. We encourage you to think about from now until the end of April, what kind of transformational initiative you might be able to implement if granted $100,000. If you have any questions, again, contact us. We don't want this to be a daunting process. It needs to be rigorous enough to provide confidence to our members that we're bringing forward these transformational and sustainable initiatives. But we want to learn about what good things that you could do if you were with us. Are there any questions in the chat that we did not already answer? Looks like we had a question about construction costs. And I think that Lori had mentioned that you can insert lines. For instance, if you're itemizing revenue sources, or if you'd like to provide some additional detail, line items for the expenses on the initiative. Share this video with others on your staff that might be willing to help you with the grant application. This information will be out there. So by all means, please check out the video once it's posted. Check out our FAQs, look at that finance review form. And then a bunch of thank yous. So thank you in return for participating in this call. Ultimately, we're excited to see you this morning on February 21st for our 2023 grant application training. I will go ahead and play. Although now that I'm not on computer video, who knows if we'll have sound.
Welcome, I'm so glad to be here with you tonight. It is our most exciting night of the year, and now tonight, we're lucky enough to get to hear from those 5 finalists and award our 2 grants. $123,500. First recipient of the grant for $123,500 is Addiction Treatment. Second recipient of tonight's grant, $123,500 is Communities in
I see a question in the chat from Wendy about the distribution of the funds and the sort of the schedule for that. I'm not sure if Wendy's still on it, but yes, we do distribute the funds in 4 increments. So typically it's you get 25% upfront, and then the remainder is it's distributed and tied to reporting requirements that we have. That being said, we're pretty flexible if we have an organization that needs more of that funding upfront, or maybe they want to hold off on the funding actually because they have other things that they need to do before they're going to be ready for our money. We're always happy to work with our grantees on that. So an example of a recent grantee who did a little bit of a different funding schedule is Cognition. The grant that they got from us was to buy a portable planetarium. So they needed a larger portion of their funds up front, and we were happy to work with them on that.
Thank you, Sam. Well, if there aren't any further questions, we will go ahead and conclude this here. We'll post the video online, so please do share it, refer back to it as the case may be, and think about your transformational initiative so that when that application opens on April 27th, you will be all ready to go. We can't wait to learn about what you would do with a transformational grant of $100,000 or more. And thank you to the other participants from Impact on this call, our president, Sam Carnes, our nonprofit liaison, Marty Olson, and our Finance Review Committee chairs, Tammy Storkel and Lori Van Antwerp. We enjoy working together, especially because we enjoy learning more about you. So thanks again, and email any questions to grants@impacttc.org.
Thank you.